until we surrender to Jesus, we will keep striving on our own, trying to create the perfect family.
That's right.
Trying to create the best kids, trying to do the very things that culture is telling us. And if we're doing it on our own and we're not doing it being guided by the Spirit of God, y'all, that's dangerous territory to be in.
I won't lose hope in the night when the fire's growing dim. I'll just let go and I'll try. Help me walk this road and find my way back home. Find my way back home. Find my way home.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
We're back.
We're back.
You're back. I was in some interviews. I missed you.
I know. Thanks for doing those.
You're
They're
welcome.
great. They're great people.
Yeah. And it's
I
great.
gotcha.
It was amazing. I mean, being able to have all those interviews and being able to talk to amazing people. If you haven't listened, we had Emerson Eggerichs, we had Max Lucado, we had Gary Chapman. I mean, we had some legends.
I got to see Emerson, which was great.
Yeah, he was here in studio.
We went to dinner afterwards.
Yeah, it was awesome.
We took him to one of our favorite local places. So fun.
It was great. And, the rhythm
so
for us,
great.
the cadence for us, is really helpful because we homeschool and we do all the things and we work together and we do everything. So having the two of us on every single podcast is really difficult. And so the ability to be able to
It's just a good balance.
run with stuff, it's a great balance. And so we're in a season now where you're going to get both of us for a little while. And part of that is because we're talking about some things that are really near and dear to our heart that we've talked about some of them before. We haven't talked about it I don't think we've been...
I think with this much focus.
With this much focus, yeah. And
clarity.
Boldness too, clarity.
Yeah. It's things
Kind of
we've
where
been
we're at.
doing behind the scenes, and I think it just feels like it's the right time to just actually hit it head on.
Yeah.
And address it. That sounds super vague. It's not going to be vague. We'll talk about it right now.
And part of that is, we're really going to look at the generations and what's happening culturally, but also not just what's happening culturally, the emails that we receive, the issues you all talk to us about that you say, hey, we're struggling with this, or we're noticing this. Can you help with this? What are your thoughts on this? I think it all comes back to what we're going to talk about in this season. And I just want to start with that. Part of this, there's a cultural thing happening. I think there's a familial thing that's happening out of the culture, like things that are happening to our families as a result of what's happening in culture. And then there are things that happen to us individually. And we have to pay attention to all of those. Individually, where we can serve you is through coaching. I do leadership coaching for men. Christi's doing Tender and Fierce. I want to highlight that right now because Tender and Fierce for the spring cohort is currently open, and we would love for you to get registered for that because it will close soon and it will start in March. So you want to get in on that now, and so that will be in the show notes today. And then from a familial perspective, we also do marriage intensives and marriage cohorts. So you can check that out in the show notes as well. We are getting ready to start a spring. In the spring, we're going to get launching a Love Your Marriage cohort. So make sure you sign up for that if it's something that you'd be interested in. So if any of these topics that we're talking about over the course of these next number of weeks resonate with you to say, hey, on an individual level or on a marital level, we really want to go a little bit deeper. Reach out to us. Everything's in the show notes. From a societal perspective, we're also doing some things that we want to talk about in relation to what is happening and how does what is happening start to shift how we think about how we lead our families and how we lead our own individual lives.
Well, I think it brings clarity too, because we often feel like we're the only ones with the issue, like we're the only ones dealing with this. And then you zoom out and from a 30,000 foot view, you look at the state of like a State of the Union, and we realized, oh, all of us are experiencing these things. And you start to realize, I think it gives a framework so you don't feel crazy, one, alone, two, and there's some sort of, I think, resolve of like, okay, this is what we're all facing. How do we tackle it and win, actually? Like, how do we have victory as opposed to just being victims of?
And we're going to talk through it, obviously, through the lens of being Christ followers. We're going to talk through it through the lens of what is happening supernaturally, what is happening at a deeper level. This isn't just about how we lead our families. There's something deeper happening. And I can remember, and this is significant, at least for me, I remember in about 2011, so the iPad comes out in 2010. I can remember around 2011, they started putting iPad holders on baby seat carriers. And I thought, man, something's going on here. Like, even the American Academy of Pediatrics is saying no screens for those under the age of 2. And now all of a sudden, these tech companies are putting these, like, we're putting screens in front of our babies. And I started speaking on this many, many years ago. And, you know, missing out was one of the talks that I did, because that's 7 lies that the screens tell us. And these screens are still telling us lies. Why am I going back to 2011? Because that's 15 years ago. Gen Z today, when we talk about Gen Z and Gen Alpha is 13 and younger. Gen Z is going to be 14 to 28. So think about this. 15 years ago, we're raising Gen Z. And we're in a culture today of blaming Gen Z for the way that they act, for the way that they feel, for the way that they have depression, anxiety, that they don't want to get a job, that they don't want to, right? And so are they really to blame? Are they really to blame for everything that they've been dealt? Let's think about this for a second. We know more about counseling and psychology than we've ever known. And yet this generation in particular, is more anxious and depressed than we've ever been since we've been keeping record. Think about this for a second. I'm just going to give some stats. I don't mean to do it to bore you, but I just want to set the stage for it, because I think it's really, really important to set the stage for it. 46% of Gen Z, ages 18 to 28, report having a diagnosed mental health condition. 46%. Y'all, that's 1 in every 2. That means if you have 4 children, 2 of them report having a diagnosed mental health condition, while another 37% believe they are struggling with something undiagnosed. That's another 37%. We're talking 3/4 of the generation think that there is something mentally not well in their life. 40% of U.S. high school students reported persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness in 2023 as a CDC study. And mental health struggles are disrupting daily life. 53% report disrupted sleep, 49% trouble concentrating, 45% avoid social events because of mental health. This is half of a generation.
My gosh.
51% of Gen Z and 44% of Gen Alpha, these are 13 and younger, report anxiety. 62% of Gen Z, stress. 54% of Gen Alpha, this is 13 and younger. 54% of kids 13 and younger are stressed.
Let's just let that hang for a second. That's half of the kids in elementary school are stressed.
That's wild.
Elementary school.
And then let's couple it with this. More than 95% of individuals ages 13 to 17 use a social media platform. 95%. Whoa. 54% of Gen Zers spend at least 4 hours a day on social media. 38% spend even more. And 46% of Gen Z says social media make them feel lonely or inadequate. I could keep going. I got stats for days. I don't want to talk about stats all day. I think we see it. I think we feel it. I think we know it as a culture. And the place that we're at is to say, we're seeing this in Gen Z. We're seeing the effects of it. As parents of Gen Alpha, we have an opportunity to shift culture by how we raise our kids and the decisions that we make. If we're seeing this anxiety and depression direction I think we have to step back and go, why are we doing what we're doing as families? If you yourself as a family are already feeling stressed and overwhelmed, it's the number one thing we hear from families is we're too busy and there's not enough time. Well, those are decisions that we're making. Like that comes down to us as parents. Like what decisions are we making that is the state of our being? So why are we doing what we're doing? And is what we're doing beneficial for all of us in our family? So we're going to end up over these next number of weeks talking about this from a societal perspective. We'll talk about it from a familial perspective, the history, like how have we gotten here? And I think the deeper part of this is supernaturally. Why are we? What has happened? How has the enemy infiltrated our families in the Western world in particular in such a way that this trickle down of stress and anxiety is happening in our kids?
Yeah. And so I think we've been alerted to this. I mean, we were trained as counselors, so we care very much about we put the label mental health, right? We love to use that, I think, in our culture now, which is great that it's like we're even having that conversation. Generations before didn't have that conversation. We entered into this conversation and we're talking about mental health. We have sent our kids to counseling, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But the results aren't what we're looking for. We're dealing with kids who are more depressed and more anxious than ever, even though they've had access to counseling, to psychotropic meds.
That's right.
So something isn't working. And we care very much about the emotions, about the health, and the overall, like the whole-bodied person of the next generation. And as like we're sitting here as millennials who have gotten...
Speak for yourself.
You're technically a millennial.
I'm a Gen X.
By like a hair.
I'm a Gen Xer.
Do you really want to hold to that?
I am a Gen Xer through and through.
By like 1 year?
Technically, depending on who's defining it, but I function as a Gen Xer. I have all the traits of a Gen Xer.
Do I have the traits of a millennial?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know if I do either.
I don't think you do.
But we're raising alphas, and we've gotten to sit in some rooms lately with people who care very much about this issue, that are trying to make not just local, but like cultural change about not just the conversation around mental health in our children, but how we've gotten to where we've gotten to, and what does like a whole person health look like. This involves far more things than just anxiety and depression. Those are symptoms of a much bigger thing. And it's been really cool to hear from people, and not from a defeatist attitude, because I think some will say, I remember sitting with one Gen Z guy, and he said, I often wonder if it's not worth going back to try to save Gen Z. Like if the damage has already been done, and do we just need to like sever the limb and go back to save Gen Alpha? And this is someone who is a Gen Z. So just to recognize, like they themselves recognize how much damage they've endured, and are seeing that what if we put effort into Gen Alpha? I don't think this is like one or the other.
No, I don't either. Yeah.
But it's interesting that they see it that way, that they think if they look at Gen Alpha, like they're the hope that we could turn things around. But I think we recognize like there is something that has shifted dramatically. We are not well. Like to put it very bluntly, we are not doing well. How do we actually move toward wellness as families? So from a very micro level as individual families, from a macro level as a culture. And like, what are these things that we have missed? What are the big things that we have gotten so off track on that have caused half of our kids to deal with anxiety, 3/4 of Gen Z to have diagnosable mental health issues? It's not okay.
Yeah. And I think, my mind's going all over the place here as it relates to this, but I think one thing that we have to identify is even in August of 2024, the Surgeon General put out a warning on the mental health and well-being of parents, because parents are stressed, parents are overwhelmed. What is the trickle-down effect of that?
Right.
The trickle-down effect of that is we put iPads in front of our kids because we're overwhelmed. Well, what's that doing? We know there is no data that suggests that social media or that even more than 1 hour on a screen a day for a child is beneficial to their mental health and well-being. But it's easier for us as parents. And again, this is not an indictment on parents, but what I am saying, and it's not this, as Christy's mentioning, it's not this, doom and gloom either. It's a wake-up call.
Yeah, it's a recognition.
But guys, there's hope.
Yeah.
Like I want you to understand and hear me say, there is so much hope. Mm-hmm. And I say that as a family who has been doing everything that we can to live countercultural and differently than we have, or than most people do, or that it's just, and I've even started writing about this. By the way, I will put in the show notes the Substack where I'm now writing on this. You can also sign up to our email list. But as I start writing on these topics, I would say this because this is one of the topics I just wrote about recently, is for us to be thinking about, this is an opportunity for us as parents. There's a lot of hope here because we get to be a generation that shifts things by how we raise our kids. Yeah. And giving them purpose, but we have to find it ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so what I get excited about is let's start taking small steps. Mm-hmm. It just takes 2-degree shift to start shifting your family in a particular direction. Now, the things we're talking about, I do want to describe this. We've been doing a lot of these things for years. There are people coming and asking questions of saying, hey, look, like we get podcast questions. Just got one coming in this morning that said, hey, look, we're trying to start, in many cases, from square one. Like we have a lot of hurt, we have a lot of pain. We're trying to raise our kids. We're trying to do the right things. Where do we even start? And that can feel like overwhelm. Mm-hmm. But I really hope that out of this series, you have the opportunity to start asking yourself the question, what is the most useful takeaway for me from that particular episode? What can I go and implement in my family right now? One thing that you can go and implement in your family right now that might start to shift 2 degrees. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that could be as simple as having dinner together a few nights a week. That could be as, like, just think practical, okay? It could be as simple as saying, we're going to start having a Sabbath day one time a week. We are going to look at all of our activities that our kids are in, and we're going to decide, are these really worth it? Because we'll also talk about epigenetics. Epigenetics, by the way, up to 95% of what is passed on to our children is epigenetic, not genetic. So in other words, that's the beliefs that we hold as parents. That's the environment that we set in our home. This has been most convicting to me. What are my beliefs, and how are my beliefs and my attitude and how I show up in my home affecting everyone else around me, and how are my children experiencing that? Mm-hmm. I'm undoing some things in our children that I look at and I go, that's probably something that I did, right? I got to give myself grace for that. I repent for that. And now I start to come alongside our children and go, hey, let's take some steps to just kind of, right? Now it's, you're discipling, you're coaching, you're in your kids' lives. This is a decision that we have to make because there are supernatural implications to it. And this isn't, by the way, this is you making decisions, but it starts by submitting to the authority and the lordship of Jesus. Until we surrender to Jesus, we will keep striving on our own, trying to create the perfect family. That's right. Trying to create the best kids, trying to do the very things that culture is telling us. And if we're doing it on our own and we're not doing it being guided by the Spirit of God, y'all, that's dangerous territory to be in.
Well, and I think like this is the lens as you're listing all these stats, I'm like hearing the mom's fear of, oh shoot, it's really bad. Like, oh shoot, this is exactly what I was afraid of. Like, I thought that's what I saw in my daughter. I think that's what I'm seeing in my son. And look, it really is that bad. Yes, they do probably have depression. She is struggling with anxiety. And it's like all the fear comes in of like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how do I protect them? How do I prevent them? Which then leads to like literal despair and hopelessness. And I think you also feel the condemnation, which is what you just addressed, of like, I did this to them. My anxiety has caused this in them. And to every mom who's sitting there thinking that right now, of like, my anxiety, my inability to handle stress well, my rage at them, I've caused this. I've let them have screens because I'm so overwhelmed. To every dad who's like, I numb out and I disconnect and I watch ESPN because I'm so exhausted after a day and I don't invest in my kids. And it's probably why they're withdrawing. That's condemnation. So we're just going to call that out. There's so many layers to this, but at the spirit world, very real, that's operating off our fear. And I just want to address that directly, because we can sit and we can talk about these things as a reality. Like, this is the way culture is shifted. This is the current state of the union for our families and for our kids. Okay. And at the same time, I remember sitting with a mentor the other day, and we were talking about it's just hard. There's just really hard things. People are enduring really hard things. She said, what a time to be alive.
Great time to be alive.
Isn't it like, and she meant every word, isn't it the best time to be alive? Why? Because we actually carry the hope within us. So if you are a believer in Jesus, and if you are not, then I want to invite you into knowing like the hope that this is not on you. You are a steward of, you are not responsible for how your children turn out. These are the things that we literally get to steward, but not control. And control is always dictated by fear. And so it's literally inverting, I think, how we have been trained to think about our parenting and then the outcomes of our parenting. We have to release fear. And I know that sounds so much easier. Like, I can say that. And the reality of untangling all of that is much more complicated. And at the same time, if we can recognize and see it through that lens, I fear for my kids. Like, let's just put that out there. I'm afraid of what? And I actually wonder if there's not great value in saying it out loud, like to your spouse.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, I am afraid our daughter is going to be anxious. I am afraid our son is moving into depression. I am afraid our kids are going to have no purpose. I am afraid my Gen Z kids, they are already struggling. Like, I'm afraid what? They're never going to get married. They're never going to have purpose and value, like feel their sense of value. I mean, what is it that you're afraid of? Because when it keeps like just that harboring, it's literal spirit of fear that just keeps working in the background, hiding in the shadows, left in the dark, it wins. When we actually expose it to light, we start to inoculate fear. And it's like when it says confess to one another, literally confessing, I'm afraid. That might be, go to your spouse first. These are your children. This is your team. This is Team Straub over our children. If I'm harboring a fear that I've never shared with him, he's going to feel where I swing so strong on maybe that's discipline. Maybe that's like freedom. Like, I'm just going to let him do that because I'm so afraid. But I've never said what it is. And so we actually operate like off of a teeter-totter where we're trying to counterbalance one another, but we're not sure, like, why do you act that way? Like, why do you come down so hard on them on that? And why do you you're so lenient about that? There is a fear at the root that we have to expose and say out loud. And sometimes we don't even know what it is. Often we can actually see it in the other person more clearly, because we have our blind spots.
Well, and not only that too, I mean, you think about this, we just had a situation come up where, and again, not related to us specifically, but a mom or a dad who has a fear about something happening to their children so much that they tell their children about it. Hey, I'm going to use this example. Let's just say that I was afraid that my son was going to get bullied. And so every time he goes to a social event or to a birthday party or to somewhere, I'm like, buddy, just be careful you don't get bullied. Buddy, just be careful. Like, pay attention, right?
Not even be careful. It's like, here's what you do.
Yeah, here's what you do, right?
If you think that you've been rejected or slighted or someone says something or looks at you a certain way, like, here's how you respond.
Right. So you see how that conversation already is setting my son up to take every little comment, whether no matter the intent behind it, and view it from a lens of being bullied. And so now I am prescribing my own fear. And I think this is what's so, and guys, I've been guilty of this, like not necessarily this one in particular, but I've been guilty of prescribing my own fears onto my kids.
As we all have. That's
yeah,
the point.
I think that's the thing. As we all have. Is we have to admit, like, we do that.
Yeah.
But that's because we're human. Allow yourself to be human. And I think we also, let me say this. I want to follow up to Christy's point, because I was pulling this up as she was making her point, and it fits so perfectly together. I think it's critical that, and again, it's not easy. This is a journey. That's why I'm saying, like, you just can't flip the switch one day and turn off fear and turn on faith. But fear is faith. Fear is just faith in a negative outcome.
The wrong outcome.
The wrong outcome.
Yeah.
It's a different direction.
It's believing that is truly stronger and will win.
And will win more than God. That's why God is saying, do not fear. It's why he says it so often. Do not be afraid. Do not fear. Because he is with us. And so when we put our faith in the worst case scenario, what we're doing is we are acting, behaving. This is epigenetics. Acting, behaving, prescribing it to come into fruition. This is where self-fulfilling prophecy comes into play. These are actual spiritual laws that are really, really important that we pay attention to, because when we listen to social media, when we listen to the mainstream news, when we listen to what's going on in the world around us, it is a spirit of fear that's driving literally everything.
Right.
And seed gets planted in your brain, and the next thing you know, it's driving how we live. And I think in this season, we don't want to make this just about, quote unquote, the mental health of the next generation. We don't want to just give, here's, have dinner 5 nights a week with your family. Like, sure, you can prescribe a couple of different things and you might see some shifts. But you can't self-will this all to happen. We are at a point in culture where we have to allow the authority and the lordship of Jesus to bring the freedom into our families and into the next generation. There's a verse in 2 Corinthians 3 that says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Okay, you can say, well, yeah, I have Jesus in my heart, so there's freedom there. No, it's where the authority of the Lord is. When you look at the Greek, it's where the authority of the Lord is, there's freedom. So if you don't have the authority of the Lord in a place, there's not going to be freedom there. We have to bring the authority of the Lord into the place. And a lot of times we submit the authority of the Lord to our fears. And this is just a different way of belief and trust. And I'm telling you the way to do this. This sounds incredibly like, oh, here we go again. Just read your Bible more. Guys, we have to. This is a challenge to myself. We have to know the Word of God, because we have to continue to allow ourselves to understand the truth of God. If we don't understand the truth of God, we're going to be swayed by the fears of the world. We have to understand that though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for he is with me. That he is that his rod and staff, that they comfort me. That he loves me with an everlasting love. That yes, in this world we will have trouble, but take heart, he has overcome the world. We have to remind ourselves of these things when we're in the middle of it. And I love Philippians 4. I'm going to read it out of the Passion Translation. Don't be pulled in different directions or worried about a thing. Don't be pulled in different directions or worried about a thing. Be saturated in prayer throughout each day, offering your faith-filled requests, your faith-filled requests before God with overflowing gratitude. God, thank you for my family. God, thank you for my wife. Thank you for my children. Thank you for the beautiful weather. The micro gratitudes that Christi talks about in Tender and Fierce and on other episodes that we've had. Tell him every detail of your life. He already knows it. He knows the feelings you're having. He knows the fears that you have. I think it's really important that we think about, as we talk about these hard topics over the next number of weeks and where we're at as a generation, and calling us higher, is to look at it and go, number one, it's hard. Gen Zers, if you're a Gen Zer in here and you're listening, we have older Gen Zers who listen to the podcast just to go, hey, look, you were set up and we experimented on an entire generation with screens and with a number of different things, and it didn't go well, and it's not your fault. And to parents who are raising kids in this generation, Gen Alpha, look, we are in the first generation. I genuinely cannot, I don't think there's a lie in this statement at all. It is harder to raise kids today than it's probably ever been. And you know, our ancestors could look at that and go, yeah, no, it's not true. It's not true. They didn't have screens. They didn't have all knowledge in the palm of their hand within a second, or any image. Like it is really difficult. And so, to Christi's point, there's no condemnation in Christ Jesus.
Except there is a lot of condemnation.
There is.
And here's what I'm hearing.
But not in Christ Jesus.
That's right. No, but that's what it's flipping. It's literally flipping the narrative and the perspective. Like if you think of the lens at which you look at it, because you can listen to all that. And I'm thinking of all of the, even Gen Z, some of the younger millennials who are hesitant to have children because they are so afraid.
This is a very real thing.
Gen Z do not want to have kids.
And afraid to get married.
Yeah.
Or not know how
yes.
to even approach someone to get married.
They're not dating. They don't want to get married. They don't want to have children because they've absorbed a lie. So many lies. And we're going to address this like in this whole season. But one thing I just want to like speak to right now is like I hear we have a lot of people that listen because they are wanting to prepare to get married, wanting to prepare to have children. That's right. And that's beautiful. However, if you are doing it out of fear, you are so afraid of making the mistakes your parents made. You are so afraid of having children because this is the hardest time. Parenting has never been harder. I don't want to bring kids into this world. I just want to expose the fear at the root of the lie because I think you're exactly assigned to reproduce, to like send arrows of truth and light into the world because it is trying to shut you down so that the darkness wins. Mm-hmm. What if we are the ones, like it says, when we think about literally the call on our lives and our children's life, that they might be somewhat like Esther, like for such a time as this. And I say somewhat like Esther. I think it's a generation of Esthers who are, us included, that are needing to raise kids in a very different way so that the light actually prevails over the darkness. Because what we're seeing now, very clearly, darkness has won to this point. When 3/4 of a generation have mental illness, what does that say? Darkness is currently reigning. What does that mean as the church? What does that mean as sons and daughters of God? That we are actually the ones to be sent out into the kingdom, like to literally bring the kingdom of heaven down onto earth so that the reign of darkness is broken, so that we bring light. Light shines in a really dark place. There is no greater time to be alive. There is no greater time to raise children because they are children of light sent into a dark place and they will shine. They're not just swimming. Like I feel like we kind of grew up in a generation, we were able to just kind of swim with culture because it wasn't that bad in air quotes. We're seeing it's gotten pretty bad. What a time to be alive. The fear that has kept you. And that's why I say it out loud. If you're not married, say it to your best friend. Like, say it out loud to someone. Say it to a trusted man or woman in your church that can sit with you and absorb what this swirly stuff that goes on inside. It's like, I'm afraid to do this, but I kind of want to do it, but I'm so afraid of doing it. You find your fear. And you basically you flip that arrow. So if you think of fear as like a target where the enemy has shot you with an arrow, you go to the end of that arrow, you flip that around, and there you will find the truth. It is probably exactly what you are called to. It is exactly what you are made for. It is exactly what you are gifted in and assigned to do. So it's like literally, I loved your example the other day of like running into the storm. Find your fear and like start running.
Yeah. And the idea of that is, buffalo are made to, when there's a big, massive snowstorm coming, they run into the storm. They don't run away from it because they know when they run away from it, the storm's just going to last longer and they're going to suffer longer. It's better just to run straight into it and get through it. And I think,
Isn't that powerful? Bison, so wise.
And by the way, here's what makes it really, really difficult in our culture is the serpent is incredibly conniving. Mm-hmm. And so we're not just lied to. Like if you were just blatantly lied to, you'd be like...
You'd call it out. You'd know it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, that's ridiculous. It's half-truths, right? And so there's some truth to, you gotta, it'd be really important. And again, we're not against travel sports, but we're against the culture that is out there, that it's become, and how it's disintegrated families. So I'm just using this as an example, but it's like, let's get your kid into travel sports. It's going to be good for them. By the way, your kid is awesome. I just saw this the other day. I saw a post about this where a woman posted that her son had gotten into a travel sports program, and they sent this amazing email of how awesome he was and for the opportunity that he had. And she gets to the end of it, and it's a $4,000, in. So they already are $4,000 out without having to even travel anywhere, right? But it's the subtlety of like, oh, he's awesome. And as a parent, like, oh, you don't want to miss this opportunity. Like, this is a really great opportunity. And she was saying, my son's not even that good. Like, this is like, they're telling me how awesome my son is. I know he's not that good. And here's the money. Here's the in. And it's like, guys, let's look through the lens of the truth so that we're not just giving into everything that's thrown our way.
And it's not just half truths. Okay. So it's half truths, but it's also, it feeds on wounds. So the enemy is going to feed off of your wound. So if said sweet mom had a rejection wound, perhaps she's
picked last at the playground.
Yeah. She or her husband did, right? We are going to operate out of our wounds and make decisions that feel more comfortable, that puff up, that like stroke that ego and pride. That's like, yeah, see, my kids are valuable. They're worthy. See, because they're doing well in XYZ. That could be like what school they go to, how you choose to school, what you put them in. And it's not just decisions like that. This is like career stuff for us as adults. Like, well, I feel so validated in my job and I keep going up the ladder, and it's preying off a wound. I mean, preying like prey, preying off of a wound in us. And it keeps us in this perpetual cycle of fear and addiction to approval, wherever we get that. But because we're so afraid. Maybe we're so afraid of the culture. So we choose to harbor our kids at home and homeschool. And we're so afraid of them being corrupted and bullied and because of our own rejection wound, right? So we're still parenting out of not just fear, but out of our wounds. And so we believe the lies because they're easy to believe when there is a half-truth that preys on a wound. It's literally how the enemy, and he just repeats it through our entire lives. So it's the same thread. You'll see it just kind of hit again and again and again. throughout your life. And the same thing is true. Follow that arrow, go backwards. It's probably exactly what you're created to do. And so we start to like bring these things to the light, say them out loud. This is why we love counseling. I think it's incredible. That's why we love like covenant, beautiful friendships and community. You can say these things out loud to people.
Speaking truth in love.
Yeah.
Like this is what.
Who see you in a very different way. Like we are blind. We have blind spots in our life. Don't pretend like we don't. We do. There are things you cannot see about your own life because you're seeing it through your own lens. It's just like how AI works. It has this beautiful narrative that just like pats you on the back and tells you do such a great job. Which, to be honest, there's times that like I'll ask it a question. I'm like, that was the most encouraging response. Like, hey. They're like, you are phenomenal. What a phenomenal question you've asked. Like, man,
it can build you up. And now take that to Gen Alpha, who's using AI more than ever. We haven't even gotten into AI yet. Gosh. That's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But let me just go back to something Christi said, and I just want to highlight this. This goes back to why are we doing what we're doing?
Right.
I think at the end of this episode, I just want to allow you to be able to, number one, experience the love of Jesus for you. He's given you your children for a reason, and He's given the children we get to steward for a reason.
Or the children that you have not seen just yet.
Just yet.
But are coming. Yeah.
And by faith, they come. So what do there's a progression that can happen. Well, if I get my child into travel sports, see, I'm afraid that we won't have the money to be able to send them to college. And so therefore, in order for them to go to college to get a good job, I need to put my children in travel sports so that maybe they could get a scholarship to go to college, and that would help them pay for college so that you see where we're going here?
We're not. I just want to be very clear. We're not picking on travel sports like it is the only issue. It is one.
It's one of.
I mean, you could be so overly invested in church activities. You're at church however many nights a week. Like this is it's still doing the same thing where it's disintegrating the peace, and you're operating out of a fear-based narrative. You're operating out of or lack.
And when she says that you're at church every night of the week or you're at church all the time, it is because of an authority pleasing. You're like, I got to do this. You're trying to, versus did God really say that you're supposed to be serving in the areas that you're serving in this season of your life? Right? So it's, did God say, or?
Okay, but this is, you literally just said it. This goes back to the lie in the garden. Did God really say?
Did God really say? And what'll happen is, all the enemy wants to do is just sow a seed of doubt in your mind.
That's it.
Just a seed of doubt. And so if your fear, let me just finish that thread. If your fear is that your kids aren't going to get to go to a good college and get a good job one day, let's all of a sudden start asking the question of, Gen Zers went to college and they're stuck in so much debt right now, not being able to get jobs that match how much they had to spend to get. When you start to look at the data on college and debt and what is causing mental health problems, college debt is a major part of that. The job opportunities for Gen Z are not as strong as what they were told they would be. Now, there are people that would disagree with me on that, but look at the data. Go ask Gen Zers. Go ask. They're not lazy. I met with one recently. She applied she spent 2 months applying for 300 different positions, and a college grad out of a really, really strong college university, and just having a difficult time. What about the way of entrepreneurship? What about the way of the trades? What about like thinking even as parents, what is best for our children? I'm not saying college is not great for them, but is it great for every single kid? No, it's not. And in fact, I think our education system is a whole other conversation we can have. I'm not against education, but is the education system truly serving our children and our families the way that it used to? I think it's a question we need to ask as parents. And so
it's almost like we're running on an old treadmill toward a goal that doesn't exist anymore, like toward an idol that's come down. It's not even real, but we've not woken up enough to get off the treadmill and to even just ask the question, what are we running toward? Because we're still operating, a lot of us, I'm going to call you a Gen Xer because I know you like to be called it. Gen X and millennials are still running on the treadmill that we were told to run on. It is not the same one that our children should run on. They are not, the thing at the end is not what we were promised, or even actually what the fruit of what a lot of us got some decent jobs coming out. We've maintained decent lives. It is not the same truth.
And let's be honest about this too. That system, it worked.
Yeah.
And we just did it without even asking why, because it worked.
It's true.
But the problem is how often did we ask Jesus, what are we supposed to do? I just really want to encourage you, if you listen to this podcast, that you come out, listen to that passage in Philippians 4, bring all of your worries and your concerns to Jesus. In gratitude, God, thank you for my children. Thank you for the ways that you're guiding us. Thank you for all, right? And then to be able to ask him, God, what do you want our family to do? Should we homeschool? Should we private school? Should we public school? God, what do you want our family to do? Which child should be in which sport? And should we even be in sports? And if we are, God, are you calling us to that as a family? What does that look like? And it can be for different seasons. But just simply ask the question, why? But do it in the context of receiving his love for you. Do it in the context of asking him for more trust. Like that you can trust him, that you can believe him, that the worst case scenario is not to come, but that his plan for you and your family is what's to come. And there's no greater plan on the planet than that.
Well, it says, train up a child in the way they should go. And when they are old, they will not depart from it. But that is not the way we were told to go. That is not the way our son Landon, Kennedy, Micah, they will not be trained up in the same way because they are not going to the same destination. They have different calls. They have different giftings. And if we're not paying attention to the way they should go by listening literally to the voice of the Holy Spirit that tells us in divine wisdom, on time, not always ahead of time, but on time when we need to know it. We take things a day at a time, a year at a time, a kid at a time,
right?
And recognize there is not a blanket answer. Don't ever take what we do and try to implicate it on your family. Like it will never work. But listen, a kid at a time, a day at a time, a decision at a time, and recognize like this, the pressure is not on you. Like we are literally submitting, surrendering, and listening.
You know, I just saw your nails. You got your nails done with Kennedy over the weekend. And
I did. They're pink.
And I love that you have that little one there on the
the
little heart on your ring finger.
What was that about?
I just noticed it. I hadn't noticed it before.
I
don't know what that tells me about me as a husband, but I love it.
It's been a couple days. It's okay.
It's been a few days.
It's okay. We have one son who really likes it. He always checks me. He always
I love it.
Wants to see our nails. But even to do that together, like it was so sweet. But we got so much sweet time together. And then I took the boys on a little date. That was so sweet. Actually, it was so sweet.
And we're going to talk about these things coming up because I do think that it's really important. I think one of the biggest things that we have found to be life-giving for our family when we bring the authority of Jesus, the authority of the lordship of Jesus into our family, there's freedom. And what that means is you have to start saying no to things that you believe he's telling you to say no to, that in the past we would say yes to just because it was probably people-pleasing or it was out of a sense of rejection or a wound, and we filled our schedules with things that was like, man, and you know, I had a friend ask me the other day, how are you guys doing? And I just can't tell you what a joy it is to be with my family. I can't tell you what a joy it is to be with each other, to be with my kids. Is it hard? Yeah, of course, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode a little bit is embracing that hard. We have to embrace the hard. Of course it's hard, but man, it's good. It is so good. And I just want us to be able to embrace the hard, but experience the freedom. And it's been fought for. Please don't understand. This isn't just a flip the switch. You cannot minimize the meaning of someone else's pain in their life. And we're not trying to do that in yours. But we do want to help you find a way forward, because right now a lot of people are stuck. And we're saying, hey, here's a way we think would be really important to get unstuck, it both supernaturally and just naturally, making certain decisions that influence how you lead your family. So, hope you enjoyed today's episode. We will be back next week with more of this conversation. Check out Tender and Fierce in the show notes. Check out the coaching. If anything we said today is resonating with you in the sense of like, hey, I would love to reach out for marriage coaching. I would love to reach out for an intensive or our Love Your Marriage cohort. We will be guiding and leading these things. And by the way, if you also have any topics or this brings something up within you that you're like, I really want to, could you address this? Go to famousathome.com/podcast. There's a Q&A right there. There's a place to submit questions and topics. Would you go there? We'll put it in the show notes. That way you have the ability to be able to share with us what's on your heart, things that you have questions about as we tackle these topics, and we can journey alongside you guys well. So, till next week, keep in mind, the greatest red carpet you'll walk is through your front door.
Keep being famous at home. We love you.
All the fear